Never-Ending Chain by Dragon Translator. Chapter 11. Storytime. Hiccup and Toothless hovered over the plaza as both flight mares landed upon the stones. The elders and the non-bonded dragons landed in a half-circle around the flight mares. The riders and their dragons landed in a line along the hill overlooking the plaza. Astrid and Stormfly stood in the middle. Torgeir and Firestorm were beside her. Every dragon had a clear line of attack, and the flight mares had no way to harm any human that came into the plaza. Hiccup heard a chitter and looked towards the great hall. Iggy, the orange terror male that had come with Sneaky, flew over. Buttercup, a pale yellow terror female that joined the nest 2 weeks ago, alongside with her mother and little sister, flew over as well. "Find my father," Hiccup said, "and round up the village as well. Our guests have something to tell us all." "Aye, Alpha," Iggy said before he and Buttercup flew off in different directions. Soon, most adult members of the tribe, and all the adult dragons left in the village, came out of homes and the Great Hall. Given the time, Hiccup suspected the young humans and dragons were asleep. That would actually be a benefit. The young would not really understand, and might cause a disturbance, especially this late. Stoic stood beside Astrid and Stormfly, Sneaky and Sharpshot sitting upon his shoulders. The two had stayed behind to aid Blue and Star to watch over Ringfire's hatchlings. Hiccup held his hand up when Sharpshot looked over at him. His brother nodded and remained on Stoic's shoulder. Hiccup looked over as Astrid's father, mother, and cousin walked up. "Mr. Offerson, you and your family, please stand beside my father," he called. His future in-laws blinked, but did as he asked. Stormfly and the bonded dragons shifted to allow them, but made sure that they could still respond if needed. Hiccup slid his hand down the side of Toothless's neck. Toothless landed beside the flight mares. Hiccup remained in the saddle, but stared at the pair. "Please explain what happened 10 years ago," he said. The mother looked around, and then up at the Hoffersons. She tilted her head. "Given the Alpha of the nest has asked you to stand there, I can only assume you are kin to the one my tale is about." Brynja's eyes narrowed. Hiccup swallowed as Brynja looked over at him. Toothless rumbled softly. Hiccup kept his spine straight, but his hands gripped the handles of Toothless's saddle until his knuckles were white. He wanted this to go well. He wanted to clear the Hoffersons' name. It was the least he could do for them. They had supported him even before Gyda's return unblocked their memories. Edis had aided Gothi in keeping him alive while he recovered. They allowed him to court Astrid, and agreed to the marriage contract. He had to repay them. "We glow-eaters must feed upon the algae the ancestor Skyfire awakens," the mother began, staring up at Brynja. "We have regular challenges for the rivers the algae lives in, to ensure no one feeding ground is overused. My mate won the right to this feeding ground." She lowered her head, and her tone became filled with the same pain Hiccup heard in his father's voice when he spoke of Hiccup's mother. "We did not know it at the time, but he had been injured internally during the fight. He died a mere 3 days after defeating the old glow-eater that fed here." The mother paused, looking at her daughter. "As his mate, the grounds fell to me, and the egg I carried." She looked around at the other humans and dragons listening. "A day before the Skyfire roared across the skies, another male glow-eater requested I become his mate. He believed I would accept because I was alone, and he could gain rights to this feeding ground without fighting for it. I refused. He was less than pleased, and attacked me." That caused a murmur throughout the crowd. Many years before, Hiccup's predecessor, Hiccup Horrendous Haddock II, gave all in the tribe, women and men alike, the rights to refuse a marriage proposal if they had logical reasons for doing so. Once refused, none could force an acceptance. If any tried, they were arrested and faced exile. As this had been right before the dragons started raiding, none after him had removed the rights. Now it was something that had always been. Those alive now did not take well to someone attacking over a refusal. "I was injured," the mother continued, and held up her left paw. One such as the brother of the alpha of this nest saved my life, and in doing so saved my daughter's life. I came to this feeding ground because I had to feed, and then I had to lay my daughter's egg. I could not let my mate's legacy be lost. The mother turned back to the Hoffersons and bowed her head. Your kin faced me alone to protect your dens. I sprayed him with the mist my kind use, so that he could not interfere with me getting as much of the algae as I could before they reached the caverns under your territory. I could not really control my flight or my diving, as my wing was the first part of me that male globe-eater targeted. I regret I caused one of your dens to fall upon your honoured defender. Our mist temporarily freezes our targets, and they are unable to move until it wears off. Your kin was unable to get out of the way.
So, my brother did not hesitate in battle?
Brynja asked, staring down at the flightmare. He never wavered, even as I dove at him. He showed honour and courage. I am sorry that he died. It was never my intention to kill any human. I understood that this was your territory. I just needed as much of the algae as I could get. It holds properties that keep my kind alive, and aids our offspring to survive and hatch healthily. Hiccup cleared his throat, catching the attention of everyone in the plaza.
Astrid was at my side as we greeted these two, and was at my side when we fought off another who tried to take the river from them. She never wavered, and she never backed down. She was fearless.
He paused, looking at his future father-in-law.
As are all the Hoffersons.
A cheer rose from both the dragons and the humans. Hiccup sighed in relief as Brynja stared down at him and smiled. Finton stared at him as well and tipped his head once. Ida smiled brightly, and Hiccup caught her wiping at her eyes. Torgeir looked at the adults in his family, then up to his sister. She smiled down at him. Torgeir blinked, but did not react. Hiccup suspected the boy was confused, and did not quite understand what was going on. He also suspected Astrid or Edis would explain it all to him before too long. Hiccup dismounted, and knew he had surprised Toothless as the Night Fury gave a soft hiss. Hiccup placed a hand upon his brother's head for a moment, then stepped closer to the flightmares. The daughter watched him warily, but did not move. The mother tilted her head. Hiccup held up his hands and turned his gaze. He heard murmurs from humans and dragons alike, and then heard Toothless warble something that sounded resigned. He waited, and was rewarded as warm scales pressed into his palms. He looked back and smiled before softly scratching both flightmares' noses. They purred. Hiccup looked up, finding Astrid staring down at him with narrowed eyes, before she shook her head. Hiccup smiled at her then, looked towards Gothi, who stood near to Gida, and Shadowfire at the end of the line of riders.
Elder Gothi, the mother's injuries pain her to this day. Could you look them over and see if there was any help we can give her?
Gothi slowly made her way down the stairs. She crossed over to the mother. Silence fell as she examined the mother's wing and paw. She stepped back and scratched in some dirt upon the plaza stones. Hiccup looked down and frowned.
Too much time has passed?
Gothi nodded.
Is there anything you can do for her?
Gothi tilted her head, then smiled, and scratched another series of runes out. Hiccup blinked and tipped his head. He looked back to the mother.
She says she can make an ointment that will ease your pain. Sadly, it won't heal you completely. You will need to visit each week, so she can put more ointments upon your injuries.
I see. Thank you for the attempt, Alpha of the Nest. Hiccup frowned.
You would not come back to receive the treatments?
The mother blinked. You would let me? Let us? Because my daughter has vowed to not leave my side until it is my time to fly with our ancestors.
I'm not going to object, Hiccup said. You both kept to our terms tonight. So long as you follow them each time you visit, you are both welcome to.
Both flightmares blinked at that. They looked at each other, though not removing their noses from Hiccup's hands. They looked back to Hiccup. You are the strangest alpha I have ever come across, the mother said softly. Hiccup chuckled.
I've been told that before.
We accept your terms, Alpha of the Nest, the mother said, smiling, and I still give my life in payment, should either of us breach those terms. Gothi tapped his shoulders and pointed down. Hiccup read her new runes and looked up to Astrid.
Will you and Stormfly give Gothi a lift to her hut? She says she has some of the ointment already made.
Aye, Hiccup. Stormfly's wings flared and she glided on and down, landing next to Gothi. Stormfly then sat down and lowered her head, so Astrid could aid Gothi on. Once both riders were secured, Stormfly rose to land upon the walkway outside from Gothi's hut. Hiccup watched them, though he continued to scratch the flymares' noses. Forgive me, Alpha of the Nest, the daughter said softly. But why?
Why what? Hiccup asked, looking down at her.
You could have run us both off, but you allowed us to feed. You kept a rival from attacking us. A rival that has followed us because she thought Mother's injuries meant she could easily take this feeding ground. You asked one of your nest's elders to help my mother. Why?
Hiccup tilted his head. I will not lie. Had you continued to hurl insults or attacks against members of my nest, I would have had both of you driven off. But you stopped. You both agreed to the terms I gave you. To not aid you after that deal was struck would have meant I dishonoured myself and all I was taught. Hiccup shrugged. Besides, you both have as much rights to live as those who live here do.
The daughter blinked, but Stormfly returned. Astrid dismounted and aided Gothi down from the Nada's back. While Gothi tended to the mother, Astrid moved to stand beside Hiccup. She placed her hand upon his arm and leaned over to whisper into his ear. Thank you. Hiccup hummed, resisting the urge to kiss her as she leaned back. He could not move until Gothi was finished. He had deliberately approached the flightmares because he would not allow anyone else in the nest to do so. He would keep them all safe, even if he had to die for that to happen. That Toothless would die with him, and he would leave his father and Astrid behind, did cause regrets. But Hiccup would protect his tribe, and his nest, at all costs. He blinked when she curled her finger under his chin and guided him to face her. His confusion cleared when she pressed her lips against his own. He moaned and returned the kiss. A squawk from behind Astrid had both pulling apart. Hiccup looked over Astrid's shoulder as she turned to face Stormfly. Couldn't resist, Stormfly said, chuckling. But Astrid and Hiccup snorted. Gothi finished with treating the flightmare, snickered. She then reached over and gently tapped Stormfly's jaw before shaking her head and finger at the dragon. She scratched out some runes, and Hiccup's cheeks warmed. Astrid coughed. What did she write? Toothless said, walking over. Hiccup and Astrid both looked away. Gothi giggled and tapped her staff to the ground. Gobber ambled over, and Hiccup felt his cheeks flame as his mentor gave a belly laugh. He looked over at Stormfly. She be wanting you to let him kiss with everyone watching, or they might wander off to kiss where no one be watching. Stormfly tilted her head, staring at the elder before turning to face Hiccup and Astrid. Her eyes narrowed. Hiccup wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole as Toothless began to chortle. The mother flightmare began to chuckle. She looked at her daughter. See, daughter? She said humans can hold honour, and apparently can have a sense of humour. There is much we can learn from this nest. The daughter looked around, but did not remove her nose from Hiccup's scratching fingers. The ancestors bring us strange things, Mamma, she said softly. True, but they also bring us great things. I think this nest qualifies as both, and I am grateful your father beat the old glow-eater who was here. He would have not appreciated this nest, or the ones living in it. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I love that chapter so much. Oh god. Yes, the Hoverson's name is cleared. The flightmare, the fact that she dove at him. I like how it's written that she wasn't violent, but she simply couldn't get away in time enough that Finn still died because of a house collapsing on him because she couldn't move away fast enough. I like that touch. And I like that Finton's there too, even though you don't hear of him much, but he's right there beside his uncle. And just knowing that his father didn't waver, that cloud has been lifted. I love that. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.